I planted a handful of sunchokes a couple seasons ago, and wow, they really multiplied, don't they? So I went to the forums at Permies to find more ways to prepare sunchokes. And wow, you guys taught me so much. I thought I would give back by showing you some of your suggestions. Ready? 1. Fresh. 2. Nuked. 3. Souped. 4. Chips. 5. Twice baked. 6. Flour. And 7. Pickles. Should I slow down? Okay, let's start closer to the beginning. So there's 3 challenges to eating these easy to grow little tubers. The first challenge is that they have really big knobs or like chubby little bumps that smush and hide dirt in the cracks and make it really easy to get dirt in your food. So use a good brush and chop out the dirty pieces when you get to them on your cutting board. Second, they create in people what Richard calls greenhouse gas emissions. They make you have farts. So here's 4 suggestions to reduce the farting out loud. The third challenge to eating these tubers is if you cook them hot or fast, they tend to leave a resinous, sunflower, too much flavor kind of effect. So all of the following 8 ways to prepare them are ways that are low and slow methods that won't make your family go bleh.
The easiest, and probably still my favorite, is to just chop them and put them fresh on salads, pitas, and wraps. Dan suggests just nuking them, by which I think he means microwaving them. So this method I've noticed works best on smaller tubers. Do not overcook them by using your baked potato button. Just a couple minutes is all you need for a plate like this. I like that they can be eaten just like this, with a satisfying squelch, no salt or oil or anything. However, Cecile likes them with mayo and Dan just adds salt. Some people that don't like the oyster-like texture won't be fans of cooking them this way. The third suggestion was to slow cook them in soups. This soup, I'm beginning with about 1 large parsnip cut up and add a whole bunch of broth. Cook that until the parsnips soften up and then blend them to create a wonderful creamy base to your soup. Meanwhile, add some sausage and onions to your pot, and when that's cooked, add back in your creamy base. If you need to, add enough stock so that you can completely cover the sunchokes that you will add to the soup at this point. When you get close to cooking time, add your rice, milk or cream, and your seasonings, and your greens. I used frozen lamb's quarter here. My family said they would have preferred kale. Ta-da! No slimy texture with this method. Lena suggested making chips, so I sliced them up real thin and added them to a little bit of vinegar water for a few minutes, and then added them to the air fryer. The air fryer didn't turn out to be a great method of cooking them, however, because they either got really hot, cooked really fast, and then had a horrible flavor, or didn't get all the way crispy. A way easier method is to just dehydrate them on high heat with a little bit of salt. Do you hear that crunch? Ah, yeah, that's good. Cassie suggested a method that she called twice baked, which just means that you first boil the tubers whole, smash them with a pot, and then add them to a skillet to fry. They tasted pretty good, especially when cooked with bacon. But boiling the tubers whole took quite a bit of time, and if I was going to do this method again, I'm pretty sure I would dice them first and then fry them or cream them and mash them. Blaine slices his sunchokes, dries them until they're crispy, and then turns them into flour. He uses them in bread, but my go-to method with a new flour I'm not familiar with is always to make pancakes. So the first batch I used almost exclusively sunflower flour, and it just left a horrible taste, a crummy texture that fell apart, and nobody wanted a second one. In the second batch, only about a quarter of it was sunchoke flour. I also added Parmesan cheese. You can see that the texture is way more fluffy. It had a better flavor and went over great as a savory pancake. Serve this as a side dish with dinner and you won't have leftovers. Ah, we finally made it to the pickles. This was by far the most recipes on this Permies thread. So this is Judah Lane's recipe. She called for garlic and red pepper flakes and the classic salt brine. Because I'm just going to put these in my fridge to cure them, I sliced them thin into chips.
Okay, so here's the refrigerator pickles. They've only been in the fridge about 4 days, but they're already pickled well. Mmm. Oh, dang, I like this recipe. Super flavorful, but not in a dill pickle kind of way. A better pickle. I would say I like these better than dill pickles. Definitely a keeper recipe.
Joseph adds sunchokes to his traditional sauerkraut recipe, which is onions, purple cabbage, and carrots. And I've been trained to only season sauerkraut with about a tablespoon of salt per quart jar. But so many of you suggested pepper that here we go with pepper. Then we stir it and let all of the juices come out for about half an hour to an hour. Then we squeeze it into a quart-sized jar, take a handful, mash it down, do it again. At the top of the jar, I usually use a large piece of cabbage to hold everything else submerged for about the 10 days that it takes for this recipe to ferment.
Okay, so here's the kraut with purple cabbage. It's really crunchy still. It's only been about 10 days. I'm not a real fan of carrots in my ferments, but this turned out pretty good. And the Sunchokes have a great flavor in them, so I would definitely do this recipe.
Ferretti suggests using lemon juice, salt, and pepper in a pickle recipe, but he only calls for a teaspoon of salt per quart. And as you can see, 10 days later, there was quite a bit of fuzz at the top of this jar. I think it either needs a tablespoon of salt or possibly some whey added to the batch. But I can't tell you how it tastes because I wasn't brave enough to scoop off the fuzzy to get to the pickles underneath.
Wow, there is a lot to show and tell for a Sunchoke noob.
I'd like to leave you with Joseph's advice to learn to adore the flavor of sunroots just like they are without trying to make them into something they're not.
I hope you get lost in a patch of Sunchokes real soon. Until then, choose freedom.